Today, we are continuing our conversation about gaslighting. Gaslighting is confusing and stressful, and many people are unintentional and accidental gaslighters. Some of you gaslight and you don't even know it. So, today, we're going to focus on that piece, the spouse who doesn't intentionally do this. Today, we want to help you, one, see if you are doing this, and two, learn how to better break patterns and avoid this, and three, learn how to honor your spouse in a way that protects and serves their body, soul, and mind. If you are new to the show, we drop a new episode every Tuesday, and on the last Tuesday of every month, it is a special guest interview. Be sure to go ahead and hit subscribe in whatever podcast app you are listening so that you can join us each and every week. So, Dr. Kim, let's briefly define gaslighting once again in case someone missed last week's episode.
Yeah, that's great because I think I do love the origin that goes all the way back to a play and a movie back in 1938. And so that term originated there and then has kind of carried through. We just seem to hear a lot more about it now. But it's used in the mental health situation, manipulative behavior. It's used that to confuse people and to confuse them into thinking that the reactions are so far off base that they're crazy. It's really defined as someone making the other person question their reality. And so when you really think about that, that's a pretty big deal. That's a really big deal that, you know, I think you said this. No, I didn't say that. You're crazy. We better talk to a doctor. You know, it's making you crazy, question your reality.
Yeah, absolutely. So how is it even possible that people could do this and not know it? Why would some people have these tendencies accidentally?
Well, I think sometimes people learn it in their family of origin. And so that maybe they saw a parent do that. You know, maybe the wife is being gaslighted by the husband. Maybe he's an alcoholic or something like that. And then the mom says to the child, you know, you can't say this. You have to act like it's okay, that this would hurt dad. This is hurt his job, or he could lose his job. And so you kind of get brought into it that way. You see what your dad is doing to your mom, then your mom kind of passes it on to you because she doesn't want things to blow up again. So I think you can do that. And I think somebody, you can be in a relationship, I think family of origin, or maybe in a relationship. Someone says, if you tell this, I'll tell everyone that you're a liar and you're crazy, because you don't want to be exposed. And so it may not be gaslighting, but just that threat made you fall into that. Divorce situations, one person tries to get the kids to side with them over the other so that they're kind of saying things about the other, paints an ugly picture of the ex to the point you're trying to alienate. It's called, you know, the child being alien, alienation. There it goes. So
take a pause and say
so I think sometimes we're exposed to it. Some of it is probably just manipulative behavior, but I think sometimes it goes deeper. And so we've seen some of those things. And so maybe if we were a child and we saw our mom, maybe it's easy for us to be a victim of that. And then if maybe we saw maybe our dad or maybe mom do some of those things and we see it work, you know, kids growing up, they're figuring out what works, how to get my way. And so then they maybe begin to do some of that behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of us just start it really early on, maybe even if we didn't see it modeled, but we just like at a very early age see that this works. Like I did this to get this and it worked for me, so I'm going to continue to do this. I pretended to be sick and it made me not be able to go to school, like a real small example of deception. But in different ways, like just finding that, manipulating people, it works, and you don't even have the words for it or really realize what you're doing, but subconsciously you begin to do it because it's effective for what you want.
Yeah. Maybe it's the kid on the school bus that tells the girl, I don't like what you're listening to, turn it off or I'm going to beat you up or something like that. And so then she doesn't ever play her deal again because she don't want to get yelled at again. She's trying to make it okay with somebody that's just being a bully.
Yeah. And I think it's important to mention kind of like towards the beginning of this episode too, avoiding gaslighting does not mean always agreeing or always understanding when you're in a marriage conflict. So you're still going to disagree sometimes, and you're still going to get confused sometimes, and have to ask for more clarity when you and your spouse are in a disagreement. And that's okay. It's just not okay when deception and manipulation are tools that you are using to get your way.
Absolutely. And how does it make, if you're making your spouse feel less than or not valued or things like that, or your spouse is feeling that way, then those are the things that you sure we're all going to have situations we've got to learn in growing marriage. There's so much that's normal. It's when this steps outside the normal.
Yeah, exactly. So, what are some warning signs that we gaslight?
Lying, if we're lying a lot, habitual lying, talking bad about our spouse to other people, always blaming our spouse, covering up denying our actions, and like they didn't really happen, suppressing your spouse's feelings and thoughts, and I see that a lot, where you just don't validate your spouse's what they feel, and in some ways I think it's guys learning of how to handle that, and that's sometimes a normal process that goes on in a marriage, because most guys aren't real in touch with their feelings, and so we've got to figure out, oh my gosh, she's crying or she's sad, and I've never admitted I was sad my whole life. I've cried because boys don't cry, and so you've got to learn that. That's different than making your spouse feel bad because they have those feelings and saying, you shouldn't feel that way. That isn't even logical. You're crazy to feel that way. That's the warning signs from a gaslight.
Yeah, absolutely. I think other warning signs that you might be gaslighting is if you really do feel really insecure, even if no
Mm,
one knows it. I think a lot of gaslighters are actually really insecure, even though it doesn't come off that way. And I think if you have a hard time seeing your own sin, like if you were to be in a community group or a small group and talking about your sin, and you can't think of anything, you can't think of a way you sin that week. That might
yeah.
might be a cue. And I think if you really want your spouse to be reliant on you, like if you're like, I want my spouse to need me, that could be a little bit of a red flag there, depending on the extent of that. I think if you pretend to forget when indeed you do remember, like if your spouse told you something and the next day when they ask you about it, you're like, oh, I don't remember that, when you do remember. It's
Yeah.
lies, subtle lies. They might even feel like white lies. Um, but these are just their warning signs. And then I think, when you deny promises that you made, like, you said you'd do that. And then you're like, I didn't say that. Like, again, just the blatant lies that seem really small, and yet it's accidental gaslighting. You're deceiving your spouse.
Yeah, I think, and I'm glad you brought up white lies. I haven't really thought of that because I grew up thinking white lies were okay, honestly,
Hmm.
because it was okay because of the greater good or whatever. I think a lie is a lie,
Hmm.
and the truth is always what God would want us to do in this situation. So I think once we start saying, "Well, this lie is not bad because this happened," I think those are very, very rare situations where that would, I think of, who was it, Rahab, the woman that lied to protect the spies, back
Yeah.
in the Old Testament. I guess that lie was okay.
Yeah.
They got away,
Certainly.
but
Mhm.
but most of the time, lying is just not the best option at all.
Yeah, surprise parties or keeping someone safe would be
Those
the
There you
only
go,
reasons
there
that
you
you
go.
would do that. I think, but even the name, right? White lies, it sounds so innocent.
It does. It takes you saying, "Oh, this is okay."
Yeah, but if you think about it, Satan is the father of lies, and lies are how we all got in this fallen, broken
Exactly,
state. Lies
exactly.
are literally like where sin originated from. It's the original sin, and so it's a big
Yeah.
deal whether you call them small, but they're still a lie. A lie's a lie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, what are some tools that we can use to determine if we indeed are gaslighting accidentally?
If you're at, ask your spouse.
Mm,
I mean, they're the recipient of it. How do my words, how do my actions make you feel? Obviously, praying for God to reveal, God, am I doing this? Am I just accidentally doing this gaslighting, and it's hurting me? It's hurting my marriage. I think it goes back to having always guys need an accountability partner, and you can ask that person, "Do you see me doing this?" We had dinner the other night with you guys. We talked a lot about things. Do you see me ever do that? Do you think I'm doing that to my wife? Or you can go to a counselor and just kind of lay some things out and let the counselor help you think through it. Uh, to me, if you're asking that question, you are on the right path.
mhm.
You are thinking, I might, and I don't want to do this. That will never, because it seems like, I think when we do those things and they work, we have a tendency to continue to do them, even though they're unhealthy. And so the sooner we recognize it and acknowledge it and begin to work on it, the better. But the person who's going to know more than anything is your spouse and God.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. And I think maybe even having your spouse listen to the last episode and this episode would be helpful, and then asking
Sure.
them, because not a lot of people know what gaslighting means.
No.
And it's a confusing thing to understand. And so having them listen to this podcast with so many examples in it might be really fruitful to say, hey, listen to this and tell me if I do any of this. I want to
Yeah.
know, I want to get better, would be
Yeah,
good.
absolutely. No, I think so. And I think you can what's your motive? When I'm talking to my spouse about something, what is my motive? Is it my motive to come alongside my spouse? Is it for us to be a team and work on things together? Or is there something else that's my motive that really is not healthy for a marriage?
Yeah. Yeah. If we realize that we are gaslighting our spouse, what is the first step in reconciling and healing?
Apologize, repent. Apologizing, I think, is really important. I think it's got to come from your heart. You just, we can all probably say, "Yeah, I'm sorry," and then we walk away. I think in this situation, because of the harm and hurt can do, is you've got to say, not only am I sorry, but I'm going to change, and then you get your plan of what you're going to do. Uh, Counseling, whatever your plan is to help you get out of that. I think that's what your spouse needs to say. And when your spouse knows that you are trying to change, most likely your spouse is going to come alongside you. They may take a while for they trust that you're really doing that, but they can pray for you and then do the things. And again, trying to unite it and get that out of unhealthy behaviors out of your marriage.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. So, how can someone with this tendency break these patterns when maybe it's been going on? This accidental gaslighting has maybe been going on for years. How do you break the patterns in your marriage?
The patterns are hard to break, and so I think you've got to be very intentional about the things you do. I think that's where a counselor can be very, very helpful at that point. Okay, you're doing this in this situation. Realize, what I would tell someone, what were your options in that situation? What could you have done? What if you chose this instead of that? And you kind of do that logically, and then hopefully with God's help, that becomes a behavior change. But I think you have to work at it hard because most of the time it works.
Hmm.
Even though it's hurting your marriage, you may be getting what you want, or what's happening is working on you, and so you want that. I think accountability is very, very important. I would, if I was a guy, if that was my problem, I would want another guy that was in my face every week and saying, "Okay, we committed to work on this. Let's talk about this." And I would give him permission to talk to my spouse and say, "Hey, you know, text your spouse. Hey, is there anything this week that you felt like crossed the line? Let me know because Bob and I are getting ready to meet." Those kind of things. Then prayer, lots of prayer, a lot of prayer, and just open yourself up to God to change. The search my heart and know me prayer. Uh, Search my know me, test me, and know my anxious thoughts. See if there's any offensive way in me, and lead me the way of understanding. Is that right?
Hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's a powerful prayer. And it's a prayer I pray every day, actually, even though I can remember it then. I do pray that every day.
Yeah.
And so I think you want to get God in the middle of it, because the one who can change you is Christ. There's just no doubt about it. He can do things that a counselor can't, the accountability partner can't. God will use the counselor. God will use the accountability partner, but allowing him to do the work in you is amazing. And what it does, two things: one, you change, and two, it deepens your relationship with God, and you see how much he cares and loves you.
Yeah, that's good. And if you're confused about, well, what is accountability or how can I do that well, we actually have a really cool tool that comes out this
Yep.
month. That's just this accountability tool, and it has like 64 questions or something like that, that are really good accountability questions. And like it also kind of gives you a guide for what that accountability meeting should look like. So check that out in our show notes. If you're wanting this accountability and if you want to learn more about that, I think that would be a really helpful guide.
Yeah, I do too. And
Yeah.
any tools, that's one of the things that we do, that our team does. I don't do it. Such a great job is creating resources to help us in our marriages in different situations, go through things and make our marriages better. And so check out our resources. That's a great one, and we have so many good resources that are going to
Yeah.
help you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, do you see this a lot in the counseling room, this accidental gaslighting? And if so, can you give us some examples of it?
Uh, I think we do. Yeah, I think a lot of it comes off as maybe manipulation, but it's trying to get our way. It's not Not listening. I think is kind of an accidental way, because I think we don't listen well to our spouse, male or female, either one. It invalidates us, and so how does that make your spouse feel because they were invalidated? May not have been an intentional, but you just didn't want to talk about it. You didn't make it important to you. I think those are some really good examples of that happens, and I think it happens a lot. And we just have to realize that really isn't the healthiest way to deal with this situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the most common accidental gaslighting things that I see is one that we talked a little bit in the last week's episode, but that pity party one where your spouse brings you some feedback, some constructive feedback, and then you just feel really bad about yourself. And so you start saying, well, I guess I'm the worst, or I can't do anything right, or I know I messed that up. And you're kind of like go into this like self-loathing state, but then it puts your spouse in this really awkward position of like they brought a real concern to you and you kind of invalidated it by just saying you're the worst, but not really making a plan for change and not really apologizing. You're just self-loathing. And then your spouse feels like they kind of have to build you back up or tell you it's going to be okay or you're really not that bad. And so they brought you a real concern and you turned it around. It's supposed to be about them and like your marriage. And now it's all about like you and your needs and like how terrible you feel about yourself.
Yeah, one of the things in that we don't hear a lot about that was really big in counseling in the past is making yourself the victim. And that's basically what
Mm,
you're doing. That, we don't use that term as much as it was probably 10, 15 years ago in counseling and things, but that's what you're doing. And so when you make yourself the victim, then that changes everything. You're not even talking about what your spouse wanted to talk about, and you're not dealing with it, and you're just putting yourself in this position of feeling and wanting everybody to feel sorry for you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I feel like if you're trying to assess, am I gaslighting? Good questions to ask yourself would be, do I know what's going on with my spouse? And do I know what's going on in their head and in their heart? Do I know how to be praying for them? Um, am I advocating for them? Questions like that to really see, like, are you listening? Like when my spouse brings something to my attention, am I quick to want to help them and honor them and serve them? Or am I self-seeking in this? Am I self-seeking and just wanting my own way? Because I think that's the root of accidental gaslighting, right? Is selfishness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think, what are you really taking time to just think what I really want this marriage to be? And the things that we talk about all the time, I think are what people really want. They want a teammate. They want someone to live life with. They want that to be their best friend. And so anything you do that has to do with any type of manipulative behavior or gaslighting is going to erode against that. And so it makes it takes longer to accomplish those things. It erodes a little bit, and you affect some trust in those things. So, being healthy in a marriage day after day is not easy, because
Yeah.
and I think what you said is exactly right. We get selfish, and so I think prayer and asking God to help me be who God created me to be as a husband or a wife each day. Asking your spouse each day, how can I come alongside you? How can I help you? Some of those basic things, I think, because it gets you thinking in a positive way toward your spouse instead of a negative way. And I think those things will help protect you from doing some of these behaviors we're talking about right now.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So, what does it look like to honor our spouse in a way that does protect and serve them?
I think you go back to what would Jesus do? How
Mm,
did Jesus treat people? I mean, and Jesus was the master at it completely. Even the people like the Pharisees, he knew how to deal with people, handle them, the questions to ask. But Jesus served people. To me, the picture of Jesus washing his disciples' feet the night before he was crucified is just an example of, oh my gosh, he served people. He saw a need there. He met the need. He's the creator of the universe, and he's there washing people's feet. So wash your wife's feet. you know but no, I think it is, it's treating her, it's a golden rule, it's all those things. It's so simple intellectually, and then you got to play it out, because that's what God asked us to do. You got married when you took those vows. If you just, I think that's why I tell couples all the time, you need to go to weddings, you need to go to funerals together. You need to reaffirm what you said that day that you committed yourself before God to each other. And the funerals help you realize how short life is and how important it is to live those out day after day.
yeah. Oof, that's good. That's good. So, if you don't have date night plans, just find a funeral in town to go to,
Yeah,
right?
just looking up on there, and okay, you know.
Stalk the obituaries. I'm
What was
kidding.
that?
I'm
What was that?
kidding.
It was kind of, probably wasn't a good movie because it was kind of gross in ways, but wedding
Mhm.
crashers. So now we got funeral crashers,
Yeah, funeral process. Oh my, oh my, don't do that. We were kidding.
No, no, no.
Yeah, I think when it comes to how to honor and serve your spouse in a way that really protects and serves their body, mind, and soul, I think key would be listening to them, which you talked about, but also seeking to understand them, and to seek to
Yeah.
bring clarity and truth to your disagreements. So not self-seeking, not just trying to get your way in a disagreement, but what would it look like to seek truth, to seek clarity, and to honor, like ask those questions in a disagreement. What does it look like to win as a team together? And then I think being honest with your spouse, like at the end of the day, that's what gaslighting is. It's deception. And so avoid lies at all cost. And when you do lie, confess quickly and tell the truth. Don't let
Mm,
it be okay to tell white lies in your marriage. Let that be a non-negotiable. When you do lie, when you do mess up, confess quickly and tell the truth, even if it's something really, really small. Make lying a thing that is not okay in your marriage and
yeah.
that is not acceptable. And that when it does happen, it's corrected quickly, so that truth can expand in your marriage and trust can expand in your marriage, and you can avoid this deception of accidental gaslighting.
Absolutely. One of the things that I think is accepting our spouse's differences.
Mm,
And early on in marriage, I was not good at that. Nancy would have something different or say something. I think that's in my mind. I wouldn't say it out loud. That's so stupid. And so I would discount it. And I know it took me a while to realize what I was really doing. I was thinking, well, she needs to think like me and be like me. And when she did, I would really praise her for that. But I think I was basically, it was manipulation. I was trying to get her to put her in this box that I had, that she was supposed to fit in as my wife.
mm,
And so the more I learned that her differences were there for a reason, that it would be really boring if we were exactly alike, and that God was teaching me things through her differences. And when I embraced them, then it kept me from manipulating, putting those down, acting like it was stupid that she thought those things, all those things that I could do in subtle ways. I wouldn't come out and say those words, but I know I did those in subtle ways. And just, I can remember as God was showing me that, and through talking to some other guys, and as I began to make some of those changes, just her whole countenance changed. It was
mm,
like, you value me, don't you? You
mm.
really are listening to what I'm saying. I don't do it perfect now, but I think I've learned so much, and I think I've learned not to make her feel bad about something. If I'm tired and don't want, instead of saying, "Let's see," but I don't want to talk about it, it's like, "Can we talk about this tomorrow or a little bit later? Let me rest just a little bit," or something like that. So I'm come alongside her, and we're a team in it, as opposed to just pushing her aside.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, this has been a good conversation. I hope people were able to see and discern if maybe this is going on in their marriage and get the help they need, so they could work towards more honesty, more truth in their marriage, more protection and honor, and avoiding lies and deception. What final piece of advice do you have for our listeners today, Dr. Kim?
Yeah, I think it's a heart search after this, kind of with God and with your spouse. Hey, I listened to this, and um, am I doing these things? Or tell me when I do that. I don't want to do that. I'm going to pray about it. I'm going to work on it. I'm going to ask Bob, my accountability partner, to help me keep me accountable. And if you're the spouse that's the recipient of that, I think you have that conversation and say, hey, there's some things that I realize that I think are unhealthy in our marriage, and can we talk about that? And we talk about what our next step would be to eliminate those for our marriage, so our marriage becomes more of what we want it to be.
Yeah, that is good. That's good advice, Dr. Kim. Well, if you like the podcast, please do us a favor today and stop what you're doing right now. Stop the podcast and pause it. And whatever podcast app you're listening on to, go leave a rating and written review of the podcast in whatever app you listen to. It is a real gift to us and to the ministry when you leave a review, because it helps more couples find the show, right? That's why we want you to leave reviews. It's not because we love to read what you have to say about us, although we do get encouraged by what you have to say. But really, we want more couples to find the show so that they can begin to work on building an awesome marriage. So if this podcast has benefited you, do us a favor and leave a review. And hey, as always, if you need anything at all, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can email us at info@awesomemarriage.com. We love chatting with you. If you have marriage questions, if you need prayer, we respond to each and every email. We mean it when we say that. So make sure you reach out. And if you enjoy the podcast, you'll probably love our YouTube channel. So Dr. Kim posts a new vlog, a marriage video every single Wednesday. day. So check it out and make sure you subscribe and hit the notifications at youtube.com/awesomemarriage. Have a great day and do something awesome for your marriage today.